I remember the exact tone of his voice when he said it. Casual. Almost bored. Like the truth didn't deserve more effort. She's just staff. We were standing in the kitchen when he said it. Morning light slicing through the blinds, dust floating in the air like tiny witnesses. I was barefoot on the cold tile, holding a mug I hadn't realized had gone cold. My husband stood across from me, adjusting his watch, already half gone in his mind. I didn't ask who she was at first. Because something in my chest already knew. He kissed my cheek, the same place he always did. Same pressure. Same timing. Same lie wrapped in routine. And when the door closed behind him, the house felt louder than it ever had. I told myself I was being dramatic. I always did that. Black women are taught early to doubt their instincts, to soften their suspicions, to swallow discomfort so the room can stay comfortable for everyone else. So I swallowed it. She appeared 2 weeks later. Her name was Mara. She stood at the edge of our living room, posture perfect, hands folded neatly in front of her like she was posing for a brochure about trust. She wore neutral colors. Beige sweater. Soft makeup. A smile that never quite reached her eyes, or maybe it reached too far. "This is Mara," my husband said. "She'll be helping around the house." Helping. Her gaze flickered to mine for half a second longer than necessary. Not nervous. Not shy. Measuring. I felt it then, that faint shift in the air. The kind that happens before storms, before earthquakes, before lives quietly split in two. She learned the house faster than I ever had. Which step creaked? Which cabinet stuck? Which hours my husband was most relaxed? And which ones I wasn't home? At first, nothing happened. That was the worst part. No evidence. No whispers. Just the slow erosion of space. My mug moved from where I left it. Doors closed that I knew I'd left open. Conversations that stopped when I entered a room. And Mara, always polite. Always helpful. Always watching. One afternoon, I caught my reflection in the hallway mirror and didn't recognize the woman staring back. Her shoulders were tense. Her eyes searching. Like she was already bracing for something she couldn't yet name. That night, lying beside my husband, I asked casually. "How long has she worked for you?" He didn't hesitate. "Not long." Too fast. Too clean. He rolled over, already drifting to sleep, while my mind stayed wide awake. My heart thudded like it was trying to warn me in Morse code. Something was wrong. And when Mara returned the following Monday, after a weekend she hadn't been scheduled, wearing the same perfume my husband used to notice on me. That was the moment I understood. She was never just staff. She was the beginning of the end. And I didn't yet know how violently everything was about to fall apart. Speech balloon. If this tension is hitting you already, tap like. It tells me you're feeling it too. The first thing Mara took from me wasn't my husband. It was my sense of safety. It happened quietly. I came home earlier than usual one afternoon. No warning. No text. Just instinct. The kind that taps you on the shoulder and says go now, without explanation. Her car was in the driveway. That alone shouldn't have meant anything. She had keys. She had permission. She had access. But the house felt different the moment I stepped inside, warmer, lived in a way that didn't include me. Laughter echoed from the kitchen. Not loud. Not playful. Intimate. I froze in the hallway, my purse sliding slowly from my shoulder until it hit the floor with a dull thud. The sound cut the laughter short. Footsteps. Then silence. My husband appeared first, his smile already half-formed, like he'd practiced it in advance. "You're home early." Behind him, Mara stood by the counter, calmly wiping her hands on a towel that used to be mine. Her expression didn't change. No guilt. No surprise. Just composure. "I was just finishing up," she said softly, eyes never leaving my face. Finishing what? The question burned my throat, but I swallowed it. Again. Because I didn't want to be the woman who overreacted. I didn't want to give either of them the satisfaction. That night, I went through the house like a stranger. The guest room smelled different. The trash had been taken out, something I usually did on Sundays. And the linen closet, rearranged. My things were still there. Just shifted. Like someone had been testing how much they could move without being noticed. When I asked my husband about her hours changing, he sighed. Not annoyed. Disappointed. As if I had failed some invisible test. "She's flexible," he said. "Is that a problem?" The way he said it made my chest tighten. Because suddenly, everything was a problem, and I was the only one who seemed to notice. Mara began staying later. Sometimes later than my husband. She knew his schedule better than I did. Knew when to bring him tea. Knew when to leave the room. And she knew exactly how to speak to me. Always respectful. Always gentle. Like she was handling something fragile. One evening, as I stood at the sink, she came up beside me and said, almost kindly, "You work so hard. It must be exhausting, keeping everything together." I turned to look at her. She smiled. Not cruel. Not smug. Certain. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay awake listening to the sounds of my own house, every creak, every breath, realizing something terrifying. She wasn't trying to take my place. She was already living in it. And the scariest part? My husband wasn't hiding anything anymore. He just didn't think I could see it. If this story is pulling you in, don't forget to subscribe. You don't want to miss what's coming next. I started paying attention after that. Not the anxious kind of attention. The quiet kind. The kind women learn when they realize asking questions only teaches people how to lie better. Mara had patterns. She arrived 10 minutes before my husband on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Left exactly 7 minutes after him on Fridays. Never wore the same perfume 2 days in a row, except once. The night he complimented it. I noticed how she avoided mirrors when I was around, but checked her reflection constantly when she thought she was alone. How she spoke to my husband with her body angled toward him, always open, while standing slightly turned away from me. Subtle. Intentional. And then there was the study. That room used to be mine. Before she arrived, it was where I wrote, where I sat with my thoughts, where I reminded myself who I was before marriage smoothed my edges. Slowly, without discussion, it became his workspace. And now, Mara's. I found her there one afternoon, seated at my desk, typing. My desk chair adjusted to her height. My lamp angled differently. My notebook, the one I never let anyone touch, pushed aside. "Oh," she said, startled. "He said it was okay." He said. That phrase echoed in my head like a verdict. I smiled. Because smiling is what keeps the peace. And peace, I was learning, was expensive. That night, I asked my husband something I already knew the answer to. "Did you give her permission to use the study?" He didn't look up from his phone. She needed a quiet space. Needed. I nodded slowly, feeling something inside me settle, not break. Settle. Like a decision finally reaching the bottom of my spine. Later, in bed, he touched me. Familiar. Automatic. But there was something absent in his eyes. Like he was rehearsing a role he no longer believed in. When he fell asleep, I got up and walked through the house barefoot. The guest room door was closed. I opened it. The bed was made too neatly. Hospital corners. No wrinkles. No dust. Like it had been used and reset. On the nightstand, a single bobby pin. Not mine. I stood there for a long time, holding it between my fingers, understanding something I should have accepted weeks ago. This wasn't an affair in secret. This was an arrangement. And I was the last one to be informed. If you're still with me, leave a like. This is where the truth starts to sharpen. The day everything cracked open didn't start with a scream. It started with a calendar notification. I was at work when my phone buzzed, a shared reminder, one we'd set years ago for bills and anniversaries. The title read, Mara, Personal Review. My stomach dropped. Personal. Not staff evaluation. Not quarterly check-in. Personal. I stared at the screen longer than I should have, my reflection faintly visible in the dark glass. My face looked calm. Too calm. Like it already knew what my mind was still pretending not to. I didn't confront him right away. I went home early instead. The house was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that feels staged. Mara's shoes were by the door. Not her work shoes. Heels. I walked slowly, each step deliberate, my heartbeat loud in my ears. The study door was ajar. Inside, the desk light was on. They were sitting close. Not touching. That was almost worse. My husband laughed at something she said, a soft, private sound I hadn't heard in months. Mara leaned in slightly, her hand resting on the arm of his chair like it belonged there. They both turned when they saw me. Time didn't stop. It tilted. Oh, he said. Again. Always that word. Like surprise was something that just kept happening to him. Mara stood up immediately. Perfect posture. Respectful distance. The performance was flawless. We were just going over some notes, she said. Notes. I nodded, slowly. My gaze stayed on my husband. Your calendar reminder, I said. The one I got. Silence. He exhaled through his nose, rubbed his temple, the gesture he used when he wanted sympathy. It's not what you think. Of course it wasn't. I looked at Mara then. Really looked. She wasn't afraid. She wasn't guilty. She was waiting. For clarity, I said, my voice steadier than I felt, are you staff, or something else? The room felt smaller. My husband opened his mouth, then closed it. Mara answered. I'm here to support him, she said gently. In ways you haven't been able to. That was when it happened. Not rage. Not tears. Something colder. Something ancient. I smiled. Because in that moment, I understood the rules of the game, and how long it had been playing without me. If this reveal just changed everything for you, subscribe now. The next part is where consequences begin. I didn't raise my voice. That's what surprised him the most. I thanked Mara. Actually thanked her. For your honesty, I said, nodding once, like we were concluding a business meeting instead of dismantling my marriage in the study that used to be mine. She blinked. Just once. A micro crack in the mask. My husband looked between us, confused now. Off script. Mara, he said, clearing his throat, you can go home early today. She hesitated, just long enough for me to notice, then picked up her bag. As she passed me, she leaned in slightly and whispered. I hope you find peace. Peace. I watched her walk out of my house like she'd already packed her things there in her mind. When the door closed, my husband turned to me with urgency. not remorse. Let me explain. I sat down in the chair across from him. Calm. Centered. Terrifyingly still. No, I said. Answer instead. He frowned. That wasn't the role he knew. How long? He hesitated. I smiled again. That pause. I said softly. That tells me everything. He finally spoke. Weeks. Months. The words blurred together, but the meaning landed sharp and clean, long enough to build routines. Long enough to decide I was optional. You weren't present, he added quickly, like a defense. You were always tired. Always somewhere else. I nodded. Because here's the truth he didn't expect. He was right. I had been tired. Tired of holding everything together. Tired of being the strong one. Tired of shrinking so a marriage could feel comfortable for him. But none of that excused what he'd done. That night, I didn't sleep in our bed. I slept in the guest room. And sometime after midnight, I heard him pacing the hallway, stopping outside the door, turning the knob gently, like he was checking if I was still something he owned. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling something unfamiliar bloom inside my chest. Not grief. Clarity. By morning, I had a plan. And Mara. She thought she'd already won. If you're still listening, leave a like. This is where the power starts to shift. Power doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it arrives quietly, disguised as routine. The next morning, I made breakfast. Eggs. Toast. Coffee, his favorite roast. My husband watched me like I was a stranger wearing my face. Suspicious. Hopeful. Confused. Men always get confused when women stop reacting the way they expect. You didn't sleep, he said. I slept enough, I replied. I kissed his cheek before he left for work. Same place. Same pressure. Same timing. This time, it wasn't a lie. Because I wasn't pretending anymore. The moment his car disappeared down the street, I moved. I didn't cry. Didn't scream. Didn't spiral. I gathered documents. Bank statements. Emails. Calendars. I logged into accounts he'd forgotten I had access to, because emotional labor includes remembering passwords for men who think they're clever. And then I went to the study. Mara's fingerprints were everywhere. Not literally, she was careful, but energetically. The chair height. The desk lamp. The faint scent of her perfume clinging to the curtains like a signature. I opened the bottom drawer. Inside, a folder I'd never seen. My name was on it. Typed. Inside were notes. Observations. Dates. Words like volatile, emotionally distant, unpredictable when stressed. My hands trembled, not with fear, but recognition. This wasn't an affair. This was documentation. A narrative. They weren't just replacing me. They were rewriting me. My phone buzzed. A message from Mara. Just checking in. I hope yesterday didn't feel overwhelming. I stared at the screen for a long time before replying. Not at all. I appreciate clarity. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. She was recalibrating. Good. Because so was I. That afternoon, I made appointments. Quiet ones. Strategic ones. The kind women make when they finally accept that survival sometimes looks like preparation. When my husband came home, the house was immaculate. Dinner was ready. Candles lit. He relaxed. That was his mistake. As we ate, I asked casually. Do you trust her? He froze for half a second. Then nodded. Yes. I smiled. Good, I said. You're going to need to. That night, as he slept, I stood in the doorway and watched him. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was losing something. I felt like I was about to take it back. If this shift just gave you chills, subscribe now. The next part is where the trap starts to close. I let them believe I was healing. That was the gift. I laughed a little more. Asked fewer questions. Started going to bed earlier. I even thanked Mara, publicly, for all her help. She watched me carefully after that. Predators always notice when prey stops running. One afternoon, I came home to find her in the kitchen, barefoot. Barefoot. That detail landed heavier than it should have. Shoes are boundaries. Taking them off is comfort. Ownership. Oh, she said, smiling softly. Your husband said it was okay. Of course he did. I joined her at the counter, our shoulders almost touching. Two women in the same space, pretending it wasn't already war. I'm glad you're here, I said. Things have been lighter. Her eyes searched my face, trying to detect sarcasm. Finding none. That means a lot, she replied. Transitions can be hard. Transitions. Like I was a phase. That evening, I suggested something radical. What if we all had dinner together? I said to my husband. No work talk. No tension. Just honesty. He hesitated. Mara didn't. I think that's a beautiful idea, she said. Beautiful. The dinner was perfect. Wine. Candles. Soft music. I wore the dress he loved, the one he said reminded him of when we first met. Nostalgia is a powerful sedative. Halfway through the meal, I asked Mara where she was from. She answered easily. Too easily. Her story was rehearsed. So I asked another question. How long have you been planning this? The air shifted. My husband laughed nervously. Mara, she's joking. She didn't laugh. Because she knew I wasn't. I didn't plan anything, she said carefully. I responded to an opportunity. I nodded. And the file? I asked. The one with my name on it. Silence slammed into the room. My husband went pale. Mara inhaled sharply, the first real crack. You went through my things, my husband snapped. No, I corrected gently. I went through our house. I stood then, slow and deliberate. I know about the narrative you're building, I said. The one where I become unstable. Difficult. Replaceable. Mara's voice was quiet. You're misinterpreting. No, I said. I'm finally interpreting correctly. I leaned forward, meeting her eyes. You didn't take my husband, I said softly. You volunteered to clean up after him. Her smile vanished. That was when I knew. The trap was set. If this confrontation made your heart race, hit like. What comes next is irreversible. After that dinner, nothing exploded. That was the part that unnerved them. People expect women to unravel when cornered. Cry. Yell. Beg for clarity. Instead, I cleared the table, wrapped leftovers, and kissed my husband goodnight like the evening hadn't just exposed a quiet conspiracy against my sanity. Mara left shortly after. Too polite. Too contained. The next few days were a study in restraint. I watched my husband second-guess himself for the first time. His confidence wavered, not because he felt guilty, but because he no longer knew who I was. I had stepped outside the version of me he'd rehearsed his excuses for. Mara, on the other hand, became efficient. Distant. Careful. That's when I knew she was afraid. I made my move on Thursday. I forwarded the folder. Not to my husband. To myself. Every email. Every note. Every observation. Time-stamped. Backed up. Categorized. I added context where it was missing. Patterns where they thought there were none. Then I did something else. I added my own documentation. Photos of the house when she stayed late. Screenshots of calendar changes. Audio, accidental, unintentional, undeniable. I didn't need revenge. I needed truth with structure. That evening, Mara texted me again. I feel tension. I hope we can reset. Reset. Like a system error. I replied. We already have. That night, my husband asked, "Are you planning something?" I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt a strange sadness. Yes, I said. But not what you think. He slept poorly after that. So did Mara. Because the next morning, she didn't show up. No call. No text. Just absence. By noon, my husband was pacing. By 3, he was snapping at shadows. And by evening, when I casually mentioned that I'd scheduled a meeting with someone to talk through next steps, his voice finally cracked. What steps? He demanded. I smiled. The honest ones. If you're still here, subscribe. The next part is where the illusion collapses completely. Mara returned on Monday. Not confident. Not composed. Prepared. She wore gray. No perfume. Hair pulled back tight, like she was trying to erase anything that could be misread as intimacy. When she stepped inside, she looked at me first. That was new. My husband hovered near the hallway, restless, waiting for one of us to take control of the room. I let the silence stretch until it became unbearable. I won't be staying long, Mara said. I think we should talk. All of us. I gestured toward the living room. Calm. Gracious. Host. We sat. 3 chairs. Equal distance. No one touching. Mara placed a folder on the table. I've decided to step away from this position, she said carefully. Effective immediately. My husband stared at her. What? You can't just. I can, she said. Then, to me, I underestimated you. There it was. Not an apology. An admission. She slid the folder toward me. It's everything, she continued. Notes, timelines, communications. I was advised to document interactions for clarity. Clarity. I opened it without rush. Flipped a page. Then another. You're doing this because you think I threatened you, I said. No, she replied. I'm doing this because you outpaced me. My husband finally spoke, voice tight. What is happening? I turned to him. What's happening, I said gently, is that the story you were writing about me no longer belongs to you. Mara stood. I suggest you read it, she said to him. All of it. Then she looked at me one last time. You were never meant to disappear, she said. You were meant to fold. She left. The door closed. And something in the house finally exhaled. My husband looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time, not as a wife, not as a problem, but as a consequence. What did you do? He whispered. I met his gaze. I paid attention, I said. If this moment hit hard, leave a like. The reckoning didn't come with shouting. It came with paperwork. The following morning, I laid everything out on the dining table, the folders, the backups, the timelines. Not as an accusation, but as a mirror. My husband stood across from me, flipping through pages like they might rearrange themselves into a version of reality he preferred. They didn't. She was trying to help, he said weakly. You know how you get when you're overwhelmed. I didn't react. That scared him more than anger ever could. I know exactly how I get, I said. And I also know how you get when you need someone else to manage the parts of your life you don't want to face. He sat down. For the first time in years, he looked small. I'm not leaving today, I continued. But I am leaving this marriage. The words landed clean. Surgical. I've already spoken to a lawyer. A therapist. And someone who understands documentation very well. His mouth opened. Closed. You built a narrative where I was unstable, I said. But what you actually built was evidence. Silence filled the room, not heavy, not hostile. Final. I moved into the study that afternoon. My study. I changed the locks 2 weeks later. Not out of spite. Out of alignment. The house feels different now. Quieter. Not empty, honest. Sometimes I think about Mara. Not with anger. With clarity. She didn't destroy my marriage. She exposed it. And my husband. He lost something he never truly learned how to see. Me. If this story stayed with you, subscribe, like, and tell me in the comments, have you ever been underestimated?